That is Mike Budenholzer, the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns, talking about if the Suns need a point guard, the versatility of this team heading into the offseason. And let's be frank, Ben, ever since last year when they acquired Bradley Beal, it was championship or bust mentality in 2023-2024, and they busted. They earned the 6th seed in the Western Conference but failed to make the first round, or out of the first round for the first time in 4 years. They have a lot of changes needed to be made, not a lot of flexibility, as they cannot trade Bradley Beal as a no-trade clause. Kevin Durant's never happy, and is Devin Booker untradeable as the foundation and centerpiece of the Phoenix Suns since 2015, which is crazy to think about that he's heading into his 10th year. But, Ben, if you are a general manager of the Phoenix Suns and you look at this team, what is the first priority heading into the offseason?
Oh, well, immediately the first thing the Phoenix Suns need is a wing defender. They need to get bigger. They're really, really, really small right now. Whether it's on the point guard side, Bradley Beal's 6'3", Devin Booker 6'4", 6'5", listed at 6'6", but not exactly a 6'6" guy. Kevin Durant is 6'11", not 7 foot. We know he's had that quote. This team is small, and they're really small. Rudy Gobert has been played off the floor in every single NBA playoff matchup known to man. He plays the Phoenix Suns, and he goes off. He was a key contributor in that matchup. For me, it's really, and it's what a lot of the NBA needs. A lot of NBA teams could use a Mikal Bridges or a Cam Johnson to make it in similar terms for Phoenix Suns fans, but a 6'7", 6'8" wing guy is exactly what they need. I look at Ryan Dunn over at Virginia, an athletic guy who you're not asking to score 20 points a night. Just come in and do what they did last year with Tamani Kamara. Lengthy, versatile defender, but they got to get bigger on this team. Otherwise, they're going to get bullied again.
Yeah, and I look at the Phoenix Suns right now holding the 22nd pick of the 2024 draft. I think we're both in consensus that they need to select somebody in the draft, whether it's at 22 or they trade back and acquire more picks. But for people out there saying, oh, this draft class lacks superpower, oh, it lacks superstar power, it's not talented, I think is completely false. I think when you look at this team and the state of the NBA right now, you've got your 2 superstars or 1 superstar, and you build around with a bunch of role players. And I think that's what you see in this draft class is role players. And you talk about wings. Let's go to the free agency side of the wing selection. We've got wings, point guards, big guys, all needs that the Suns need. Free agency-wise, I'm going to name a couple guys and tell me who strikes out to you. Nicholas Batum, Kelly Oubre Jr. Now, these are all veteran minimum guys that they can get because right now, the 3 teams that you look in the NBA that have superstars that can't afford any other guys but sign veteran minimums is the Suns, the Lakers, and the Clippers. And it's just going to be a rotation of guys every single year, pick and play, 1-year deals for veteran minimum. So you got Nicholas Batum, Kelly Oubre Jr., Torrey Craig, Robert Covington, Alec Burks of the Knicks, Gary Harris, Cam Reddish, Taylor Horton Jr., Gordon Hayward, P.J. Tucker, and Jay Crowder. Now, not an attractive list of some of them, but there's some gems in there that I think, and I wanted to hear your thoughts, that could turn out that are kind of younger, and Budenholzer's had history of kind of turning those veteran minimum guys into high-quality role players.
Yeah, the first one I look at is Kelly Oubre Jr. I don't think he's a vet minimum guy anymore. He played really, really well with the 76ers this year. Nick Batum's a guy who I really like, but I struggle to know if he's going to be a vet minimum guy, given the fact that he can shoot really well, and he's a little bit bigger, but probably still a vet minimum guy. I'm out on Cam Reddish. I'm out on Alec Burks, Gary Harris, Taylor Horton Tucker. Gordon Hayward is really interesting for the Phoenix Suns. That's a guy who, mentioned before, he's a wing. He's a bigger wing. He shoots well from 3. He's 34 years old, though, right now. You wonder how much he has left defensively. And this Suns team, when all 5 guys were clicking, weren't an awful defensive teams, although that's what people on ESPN say. A guy like Gordon Hayward, a little flat-footed, but it's just tough. That list shows you right there what the Suns' pickings are. And those vet minimum guys tend to usually go somewhere where they can win a championship. And you could argue Suns might not be there anymore.
Yeah, and another question, too, when you look at some of these wings, and we talked about how, maybe a guy like Kelly Oubre won't be vet minimum guy, and if they do want to go after some of those wings, they might have to sacrifice some guys on their team. And one of the guys that's been also a trade asset that's been rumors for is Jusuf Nurkić. Now, I'm on the side of it where Jusuf Nurkić right now is contract $18 million a year, which plays some top 15 in the NBA. But he played 76 games last year, second most in his career since 2017. He averaged 27 minutes, 10 points, 11 rebounds. You do keep him. Yes, he's a great big for you, but he's expensive at $18 million. But, Ben, do you think maybe trade him now while the iron's hot, while he is playing the best basketball, he's the healthiest he's ever been? Where do you sit when you look at Jusuf Nurkić?
You know, I'm even more curious to hear what you have to say, because the Jusuf Nurkić slander is really interesting. Jusuf Nurkić is a guy who, yeah, he's overpaid at $19 million a year, but it was either him or severely overpaid DeAndre Ayton. He felt like he was the only guy at times that was actively trying on the defensive end, although he's not a great defender. I thought he was the most consistent player at time for the Phoenix Suns. And here's the biggest thing. If you want to trade Jusuf Nurkić, awesome. That's cool. You can do that. Who are you going to get for him? And if that's the case, then what are you going to do with Jusuf Nurkić? Where do you stand on the Jusuf Nurkić talk? Are you pro or against?
I'm pro Jusuf Nurkić staying here. I think you need a solidified big man. I think you need a guy in year 2 with Durant, Beal, and Booker that knows the system and he knows his role. And you can tell based on his tweets on Twitter that he's happy to be here. He's happy to be in an organization that wants to win a title. And I can tell how his playing style matches what Budenholzer wants to do for this offense. I agree with you, Ben. The trade talks of how they're going to trade Nurkić to the Jazz for Jordan Clarkson, another player. You really think they're going to trade Jordan Clarkson, one of their best players, for one Jusuf Nurkić? I think they need to keep him. Certainly, I think another guy that they need to re-sign, and it may be a little more, Ben, is Royce O'Neal, because you do need a two-way wing, and with what he did last year, now he's going to be probably wanting a 3 to 4 year deal, and he's probably going to want $11 to $13 million, but you kind of need that, like you mentioned, that Mikal Bridges for this Suns team, and you don't really have a lot of options right now, and he might be banging for more money, but I think that's one that the Suns got to go and get.
I'm talking over you there for a second, so I apologize, but the Jusuf Nurkić thing is so damning and it's so frustrating, because there's Suns fans that hate Jusuf Nurkić, that want him gone for God knows what reason. I guess they haven't seen what a severely bad big man is in the NBA. And then they'll post trades, and social media is just that, social media. I saw one where it said Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson for Jusuf Nurkić and a first-round pick. Seriously.
Hey, if they accept that deal, come on this way, Kessler and Clarkson, if they accept that deal.
First off, Danny Ainge is really running that team. You really think it drives me insane that Suns fans, in the same breath, dislike and have all this hatred towards Jusuf Nurkić, but then in the same breath they're like, we could get Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson for him. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think Danny Ainge is smarter. I think Matt Ishbia and James Jones are smarter on their end. I don't think they're like, for example, the Bulls owner who trades away Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, which we'll get in discussion later in the program about. So we addressed that need. We're going to address one more need and one more topic before we have Joe Bourget on, and it's got to be the point guard position, Ben. It was brought up all through the season, brought on the offseason, how the fourth quarter woes and how this team kind of looked out of sorts in the fourth quarter down the stretch was because of no point guard. You look at the NBA draft, Tyler Kolek's a guy I like from Marquette. Isaiah Collier might be picked earlier from USC, but he's quick, he's agile, and he's someone that can really run that point guard position. Do they go out and trade, free agency? Where do you sit on your perspective? Let's talk point guards from your perspective, man.
I mean, point guard, it's so tough because Suns fans out there, this team needs a point guard. This team, there is no head coach, Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, or at this point, the Lakers think they're getting the next Spoelstra and J.J. Redick, who think that they're going to get a point guard and then take the ball out of Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. That's not what they're going to do. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are going to mostly play the point guard position again, which is fine. That's not a big issue. The issue is they need a backup guy to come in and be able to run the offense when either Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, or Kevin Durant aren't in, because then at that point you can facilitate. So whether it's Kolek, who I like, it's basically TJ McConnell, younger, is what where their Suns are trying to go for.
He's older, too. He's 23. So he's got more veteran experience playing in the Big East. I think with Shaka Smart, I think he's a great candidate for it, but you wonder there at 22, I think he's worthy of it. Or do they kind of trade back a little bit? Maybe get yourself a point guard in the second round like a Jamal Shed from Houston who can play defense on the other side, but he's a two-way player. So it's interesting there from that perspective if they want to get a backup point guard in the draft.
My biggest issue is this team has much bigger issues than just point guard. They need a wing. They need a backup big. Point guard's third on the list. Yes, they need a point guard. But the reason why the Suns were swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves was not because they didn't have a point guard. They beat that team 3 straight times in the regular season. They weren't big enough. Defensively, they were flat-footed. And at times, guys like Bradley Beal were getting taken off the dribble, and guys like Kevin Durant were not hitting shots. And this team's going to go as those 3 guys go. So the point guard thing, the point guard discussion gets a little frustrating because they just see it, and they don't see the other issues that they have. There's no coach that's going to take the ball out of one of those 3 guys' hands for a 23-year-old guard out of Marquette. It's just not happening. It's going to be a backup guy. He wouldn't start, but that's my 2 cents.
No, 100%. I agree with that. And lastly, we talk about the point guards, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side of Gerald Bourguet's interview. But when you look at trade market for point guards, very slim. Again, the Suns don't have a lot of trade assets out there. Some names I throw to mind, Peyton Pritchard from Boston, a backup point guard. Maybe he wants to be that starting role after winning a title. Could bring some of that title mojo and experience over to the Suns. Cole Anthony from the Magic, and then another guy, but he might be highly paid right now with the Warriors, is Chris Paul. Do you try to bring him back? Maybe persuade him on his contract and stuff like that. I don't know. That's kind of fishy there. And then the free agency-wise, Kyle Lowry, Russell Westbrook, Spencer Dinwiddie, Reggie Jackson, Pat Bev, Cam Payne, all listed as kind of those vet minimum guys that the Suns could grab there. I know you kind of said some noise about Peyton Pritchard. Does that intrigue you a little bit?
I like Peyton Pritchard. The problem is I don't know if he's going to be a vet minimum guy. That's a guy that's a hard-nosed, gritty. I know that's how we describe every white player in the NBA. And I say that as a half-white man. But seriously, he's a guy that the Suns could use. He's a really good defender at times and a good three-point shot and a good just shot maker overall. Yes, I like Peyton Pritchard, but I really struggle to think that he would come to the Suns because of the fact that they're so hamstrung by the second apron. So I hate to be the doom and gloom guy because that's what I feel like I am 95% of the time. But
you got to be realistic.
It's just tough. It's just tough. And I don't want to blow smoke for the Suns fans who think that that people are going to take vet minimum contracts to come here because that was the case last year, and then we saw what the Suns are. So it's a really tough discussion. I think they're probably going to have to draft a guy.